Hello and welcome back to the Beth Effect. I'm your host, Beth Clifford, and I'm so excited to have my guest with me today, Miyo. Say hello.
Hi, guys.
So Miyo is, first of all, she's a badass black belt jiu-jitsu, certified by Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is how I met her. She's actually helped train me in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which actually I need to get back.
Anytime, we want you.
It's been a couple of months where I've not been. But also, she helped me with my personal journey with Smart Defense. And I wanted to have her on here because she is part of the Smart Defense team, helped found the program and come up with the specific training program. So I want you to start by just introducing yourself, introducing the program. We'll kind of talk through my experience a little bit, and then we have so many questions from the audience that we kind of want to review everything. And this is not like a gossipy episode. I just want to start off by saying it's not a gossipy episode. We're not going to be sharing intimate details of different trauma or abuse, but it really is an advocate for abuse victims or also people wanting to just learn more about this, because if you or your loved ones haven't been affected, it's becoming very common. And so at some point, maybe you will. And we just want to create awareness and give people a better education on it. So
yes,
take it away, Miyo.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me looking here? Or
No.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. No.
Okay. My name is Miyo Strong, and I am a survivor as well. And my program is called Smart Defense. It is a trauma-informed, female-led self-defense holistic approach. So it's very different from anything else out there. And that's something that we're very proud of. And some of the things that set us apart, one, we're female-led. Oftentimes, I mean, in the past, when I trained in self-defense specific scenarios or seminars, it was always male-led. So for it to be female-led, and our entire team has been trauma-informed trained with the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So that the trauma-informed piece is really important. And then our holistic approach to self-defense is unique in that we blend 3 different martial arts. So we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which you mentioned earlier. Yeah. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically grappling. It's like a mix between wrestling, but with strangleholds and, ligament tearing moves. It's wonderful. But that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then we blend it with Krav Maga, and also we use Muay Thai kickboxing. But it's not just about the physical approach to self-defense. We do a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work, and a lot of education surrounding sexual violence, because it is a huge, complex issue. There's not one magic bullet out there. I mean, we even do firearms 101. We do weapons. Right. We do all of the things, but there's no one thing. And so we really do try to get a very well-rounded approach. And that's one of the things that I think does set us apart. We're not just jiu-jitsu. We're not just weapons. We like to do all the things, all the work, the hard work that goes even into meditating. Yeah. Meditating's harder for me than doing a 5-minute striking round.
Yeah. And I think you know this better than I, even from my experience, it was the mental thing I was trying to deal with for a year. So I was doing all the meditation, I was doing all of that, and I actually needed more of like the physical training for peace of mind. But then you may have a trauma victim that needs to go through something different, and they need maybe more of like the breathing and like the mental health through their trauma too. And the fact that you offer it all is great, because we do all need it all, and it's a great training to go through. I would just like to add, if you are a trauma victim or not, and you just want to learn self-defense and better equip yourself in case you do find yourself in that position too. I don't think that there's anyone who wouldn't benefit from going through the program.
Yeah, definitely. And it is, I think our approach also to self-worth is really the cornerstone of what we do. And what human out there doesn't want to feel more in love with themselves, more capable, and also more empowered. Yeah. I think all those things, whether or not you're a survivor, is they can all be beneficial.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So how long has the program been around?
So I've actually been coaching self-defense for over a decade, but Elizabeth Smart and I partnered up in 2019, and it was actually pretty serendipitous that the whole thing came about. She unfortunately experienced a second sexual assault on an airplane, And that was it was either 2018 or early 2019. And she realized like, hey, I need to do more. I want to do more to protect myself and to protect other women. So she had started going down the physical self-defense route. And for me, I actually was in the middle of a divorce and needed to pivot because I was a professional, independent, small business owner forever. And I needed to pivot to something that offered benefits and health insurance and all that good stuff. And honestly, I never thought I would be able to work full time and do what I love every day. And literally since 2019, Elizabeth and I have been thick as thieves, and it's been an incredible experience. And we're just getting started is the beautiful part.
No, it's awesome. Going through, like, I don't want to talk about my specific trauma as an adult, or as a child, but what was interesting to me, what I learned, and I think from my experience, when I was, I think 6 or 7, I had like an attempt abduction happen for me. And I can still vividly remember it. Maybe one of my earliest memories, but it's like vivid. And I remember like being dragged by my left arm in front of a church property. And he had came and was trying to drag me to his car. And I eventually realizing I couldn't get out of his hold, like leant forward and bit. He had my left arm and I bit his arm as hard as I can. I can't even picture his face, so I'll never forget his arm. Bit as hard as I could till he let go, and then I ran back inside. But then experiencing something happen as an adult, and I would have told you 10 out of 10 times, I will 100% fight back. I would not let someone like approach me or do this. And I didn't as an adult, because in my mind I was thinking, don't make a scene, don't embarrass everyone, like it will stop, it will go away. And I think what was really hard for me managing through what had happened was like, I once had the fight in me. I know I did. Why do I not, at that time as a 35-year-old, why was that fight not there? And I think probably a lot of victims can, like, part of their trauma is what happened, and then part of it is just like the second guessing of yourself and why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I do all of these things? Like, why was I more nervous about being dramatic in that moment or creating a scene? And I think what was so empowering about going through Smart Defense was recognizing, number one, the shame is not on the victim, which is a big thing. And number two, how you respond in that moment is not your fault. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not a fighter because you don't fight. It doesn't mean that you consented because you lay there quietly. Like, there's so many things that I think it's just educating and it's bringing the power back to the victim, because I think you get in your head and you replay it over and over and over again. You think, why didn't I do this different? Why didn't I do that? And for me specifically, I just didn't recognize myself, because I'm like, what? Why would I have been, why not? I wasn't fine with it, but like, why didn't I make a scene? I bit a guy's arm at 6 and got away. Why didn't I do that at 35? And that was really hard. That was probably, for me personally, the hardest thing mentally to get through. So that's what triggered my night terrors of like someone coming up from behind and strangling me from behind. It was always the same thing over and over and over again. And I would wake up and I couldn't fight. And even if I wanted to, my body wouldn't fight. So I just felt like my body betrayed me. And then my personality betrayed me too. And going through Smart Defense was, it allowed me to come back. And now I would never, I don't care if I embarrass, I would embarrass the room if I saw something happen to someone else, let alone to me. And so I think that was one of my biggest takeaways is feeling like I got a piece of my personality back that I felt was taken from me in the experience. And I know everyone's experience is different, but that doesn't come from learning Mai Tai or
Muay Thai.
Muay Thai, not Mai Tai.
Mai Tai is a delicious drink.
Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu, that just came from the whole experience, start to finish. Like, it's a whole package deal. It's not just one thing. So that was, I personally am a huge advocate for this. And, my I'll make my girls go through it when they're older. They're in jiu-jitsu right now. But I kind of wanted to talk through just creating awareness for women and men, because sexual assault and abuse is not just on women, on men. Just in general, if like, where do we start with like creating awareness for this?
Well, I think what you shared is powerful, because really the guilt and the shame that you mentioned is what keeps us quiet. Mm-hmm. I know for me, for my own personal experience, I didn't want anybody to know, because I was horrifically embarrassed and ashamed of my own body betraying me. I disassociated. That was kind of my trauma response. But I think if general like humanity starts to understand trauma responses, then we can better empathize and help heal others and ourselves. So for me, I actually almost start every class or seminar, because people see me and they think I'm this like crazy, hyper aggressive badass, which I am. But I am well aware that I could be raped tomorrow and it would not be my fault. Because we want to make sure we take that guilt and shame and blame away from the survivors and place it where it belongs, which is solely on the shoulders of the perpetrator. And so understanding like fight, flight, freeze, and appease. And now that's one thing I was wanting to talk about too, is people say fawning, but fawning has been quote unquote debunked as a trauma response.
What is fawning?
So a lot of people see fawning as like flirtatious. It implies flirting. It implies basically just going along and falling in love with your captor, maybe like Stockholm syndrome is brought up a lot to Elizabeth. But really and fawning doesn't apply to men traditionally. So it's been debunked. It's been replaced with appeasement theory. Dr. Rebecca Bailey, she's kind of the expert on that. She's got a great podcast out about that. But the appeasement theory is basically you do and say whatever it takes to survive. It's just like your body's response with the freezing is to do whatever it takes to survive. And I would say your specific response was probably a blend of appeasement and freezing, and that it's totally normal. And it is something that goes right along the, hand in hand with disassociation, that flight. Often people think flight is run away, but really flight is you're checking out. Your brain is somewhere else. Yeah.
You mentally run away, but your body is there, but you go somewhere else to protect.
Yep. Disassociation, 100%. And of course, we would love fight to always be the response, but that's not always possible. And so learning and understanding the different trauma responses can help us have empathy. And it also addresses the age-old question of, well, what were you wearing? Right? Like we hear that a lot when people disclose to us, is somebody, a well-meaning family member or a well-meaning spouse or whoever, well, but why were you wearing that? Or why were you drinking that? Or why were you out then or there, right? And none of it matters. Like we talked about prior, you could be naked in the street and nobody has a right to touch you without your explicit, enthusiastic consent. So just even learning how to use your voice, just like you were saying now, like you would cause a scene.
Oh, I would cause a scene now.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. And that's okay, because you're here to talk about it and to help and to give back and to heal others and to provide education and resources. And maybe that's why, right? Maybe like this journey, like you survived. And it's the same thing with Elizabeth and her story. She did not fight. She didn't run. She didn't disassociate. She appeased. She said, okay, I'll go along with you, because that's how she survived. And that's how her family survived. Yeah. And so all of our trauma responses are so unique to us, and there's no shame in any of them. It does not matter. And me as this black belt active competitor, former, cage fighter, I could still 100% be raped tomorrow and it would not be my fault.
And it wouldn't be because of what you're wearing. I want to touch on that a second, because that was a big piece for me. I remember you made a comment when we were first, you talked about, but what were you wearing? Like what was she wearing? And you said this, if a woman were murdered, no one asks what they were wearing. But when they're raped, they ask, well, what was she wearing? And the funny thing is like I grew up in a very religious household where we were told to be modest and cover up, because if we dressed inappropriately, it caused unpure thoughts for the man. It wasn't the man's fault. It was our fault. So it was almost like ingrained. And so the night that something happened to me, we were in Mexico at a resort, a beautiful resort, honestly, heaven on earth. And I remember wearing a dress that like showed my boobs. It was a short green dress and teal, whatever. I can't describe it. It was like, no, it wasn't even teal. It was a green dress, but like it showed my boobs. I had like a kind of like a keyhole thing. And I actually have a video of Brad recording me walking to the restaurant, and I'm feeling really cute, and I'm turning and I'm smiling at him. Little did I know what was going to happen that night. And then I remember thinking like that neck for the rest of the week on that trip, because it was also a work trip, I wore baggy jeans. I wore tank tops. I don't even think I did makeup. When I got home, I remember I only wore Brad's clothing, and Brad is huge compared to me, because I felt like it was my fault for what I was wearing, because I was wearing something and therefore it was my fault that he felt that he could do that to me. And when I kept the dress, I don't know why I never threw the dress out, but through our training, when we did the smart defense, you shared that with me, and then share what you said about, like you said, like if a victim was murdered, no one asked what they're wearing. And then you shared about the what was she wearing exhibit.
Yes. And if you have show notes, there are 2 really good resources I'll send you to put on there. But one of them that really articulates the murder versus sexual violence, it's a video called James is Dead. And it's just on YouTube. Anybody can YouTube it. And it essentially takes the same level of felony as sexual violence and murder and flips the conversation, right? Well, why didn't he get his rape whistle out? Why was he wearing a V-neck? Why? Because if he were wearing a turtleneck, then somebody may not have wanted to stab him in the neck, which is how he died, right? Or why was he at that party? Like or why was he so friendly? Like eventually he's going to run into a murderer if he's so friendly.
Like wearing a V-neck.
Yeah.
Like asking to be stabbed in the neck. Damn it, James.
Exactly. So that video, I love it. I think it very well articulates just the asinineness around victim blaming, because that's essentially what it, illustrates is victim blaming. And that's a really good video to show friends and family or anybody, students. We show it at every college class we teach, just to illustrate like not only how crazy it is, but also on the flip side, when somebody discloses to you, how very important it is what your words and your responses are. Mm-hmm. Because even one comment of like, oh, well, gosh, you may have had too much to drink. Like any sort of shame like that can derail the path of healing that survivor needs to go on. And so another point is anytime anybody discloses to you, the only thing you should be saying is, I believe you. How can I support you? It's really not, tell me the details. Like when were you there? Where did it happen? Who is it? Oh my gosh. Like it's not our job to be the law enforcement and to investigate. It's not our job to be the judge, jury, and executioner. I had to come to terms with that. My husband and I very much want to be the executioner, as I'm sure you and Brad do too, right? We very much want to be that, but it's not our job. And that's not what that survivor needs. What that survivor needs is support and belief, because to disclose is already so scary and vulnerable. Mm-hmm. The second anybody questions, like, what were you wearing? Something as simple as that can definitely derail their pathway for healing.
Well, and you're automatically putting the blame on them in some way. Like they caused this in some way. And then you shared with me that there was that exhibit.
Oh, yes. We'll link that.
Okay, link that. So Mia was sharing with me when I brought up the dress situation and how it was hard for me to even look at the dress. Like there was a piece of me that felt, if I'd worn something different that night, if I hadn't thought I looked so pretty, like it's almost like it was my fault in my head, or in some way I was asking for it, which is like almost what society thinks too, or can think. But when you said, there's this exhibit and we'll link it so you can see, it's like, what were they wearing exhibit? And there's wedding dresses in there. There's school uniforms,
footy pajamas.
There's baby onesies.
Yes.
Like this is what they were wearing.
Jeans, baggy sweatshirts, scrubs, like you name it. Sexual violence is a universal problem. It does not matter what you wear. It does not matter what you're drinking. None of that matters. What matters is that perpetrators need to be held accountable.
And not the victim.
Yes.
And so when we went, just like to share the empowering, like how empowering Smart Defense was for me was after we went through the whole training. Brad and I actually took our children back to this resort for a week because it's such a beautiful resort. And I wanted to fill it with like happy memories. And I actually packed that dress and wore that dress the last night so I don't have it anymore. I actually did throw it out after, but I specifically wanted to prove a point that there's a picture of us as a family with me wearing it at night.
Yes. And you took your power back. You took control, right? Sexual violence perpetrators, it's all about power and control. It's not about sexuality necessarily. So taking your power and control back is such a healing thing. I love that was your idea and that you did it.
Well, I originally did love the dress. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, but
don't ever apologize for the emotions.
It's not with me anymore, but I needed to erase the bad memories of that experience and fill it with my 4 favorite people. And so, yes. So thank you, because the Smart Defense there's no way I would have gone back there. And I did. And now it's one of my favorite places. We would definitely go back and visit. And I think that was the whole process for me. And this is kind of why I want you on here. And we have so many questions from people on Instagram. I know you got a lot of questions, so we'll get to the questions. But I just wanted to share that, if you have gone through something, whether recent or decades ago, that there is a path through it. And you don't have anything to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. And there is a path of healing. And you may never be the same, but you will feel like yourself again. And so I'm just really grateful for it. And I want to create as much awareness of that as we possibly can, because I love the fight you guys are fighting to be like, we don't want this to even happen in the first place. But if it does, here's how we can protect ourselves through it, and then here's how we can survive through it on the other end.
Yeah, there's and you're making me emotional too. Sorry. It's good. I love it. Emotions are so good. There is something called somatic therapy, and soma is a Greek word for body. And so using your body in a healthy way to process, doesn't have to be trauma, even just processing emotions or stress, or when you're
grief,
yes.
Or there's lots of things that you go through, lots of heavy emotions that human beings go through.
Yes. And for a lot of people, that can be endurance running, that can be martial arts, that can be self-defense training. It can be whatever it is that speaks to you, but there is so much science and data, and also just my gut feeling telling me that the movement of your body with the intent to heal is so powerful. And it doesn't have to be a specific thing, but as long as you can move your body, especially when there's something physical that has caused trauma in the past, reclaiming your power, which is exactly what you did physically, but then you emotionally and physically paired that together in Mexico.
Yeah.
That was your idea, Beth.
I know.
We didn't talk about you doing that. That wasn't a plan. That was you saying, I am ready to do this.
Yeah.
And watch me. And it was
beautiful. And I just wanted to, I don't like anyone telling me what to do or how to feel. I'm obviously a very, annoyingly stubborn person. And I think the fact for me was, it was a letting go. It was that final stage of letting go of it and just letting it be. And, 37-year-old Beth versus 35-year-old Beth, they're different people, but I wouldn't say I'm grateful for the experience at all, but I'm softer for others because of the experience. And I think my empathy for others is unmatched. If you had talked to 34-year-old Beth and you now talk to me, it's a very different version of me. And I'm grateful for that, because I think that I have become a lot more empathetic to lots of things that I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't gone through this. The stubbornness, like a diehard advocate for others, that whether it's little or not, if you see it, if I see anything that I'm the girls were telling us yesterday that there was a boy on the bus that like licked one of their friends on the side of her face, and Lydia punched him.
Yes,
and
Lydia.
I said, oh, good. And I said, oh, good. And if I had got a call from the principal about that, I would have been like, yep, no, I'm siding with my child. Like, sorry, no, it's unacceptable. He licked her face. Like, that's not okay. So the things that now and I'm raising a son and 2 girls. And this is a piece we want to talk about before we get onto the questions, is that it's so empowering for women to be able to protect ourselves. But I have my girls are in jiu-jitsu, and like we want them to learn to protect themselves, but it's also just as important. I have a son and I have a husband who is obviously very protective of me and now very protective of all the women in his life. But it's just as important on how I raise my boy in the world as it is with the girls, because with the girls, I worry about everyone else. But with him, I can make a difference in the world with how I teach him what to look for, how to respect women, how to look out for every woman. Because not every man is bad. And I think that can get mixed in this. Like men are bad. Like, so, I mean, one comment on my Instagram post was like, women need to stop having sons. It's like, well, we can't control that. And not every man is good. We don't need less men. We need more good men speaking up.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing, because I couldn't have gone through all of this without my husband. And he's a wonderful man. And now I see him, and I've even seen him in the last year, how protective he is of lots of women. It's not just me, but when he's out in public and we see stuff, and when we saw a couple things even last week happening, he's extremely protective of like, nope, we're going to move over here, and no, that person can't be alone there. And I think it's not just about the women in this, it's also about the men and the boys, and how we teach our boys and how we train our boys, and what we make men aware of as well. Because half of it is not that they're condoning it. I just don't think that they're aware that it's happening.
Yes, they're living under a rock. Yeah. My husband was one of the same as Brad. Yeah. And it's not that they're living under a rock. It's an elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's super uncomfortable. And interestingly enough, we have a men's program, and there are male survivors that need training 100%. We have a program for them. But what our main focus is, true prevention will only happen with the young boys and young men, because 98% of sexual violence happens at the hands of a male. So if we're not trying to reach the male audience, I don't feel like we're actually working for prevention. So we've developed a men's program, and it's led by an amazing guy, Marcus Johnson. Actually, I think he'd be a great guest on your podcast. He's one of the good guys. He's just like Brad and Jason. But it's reaching young boys. Like junior high is the ideal time for us to bring this education in. Okay. And it's right now we're in the colleges, and we've got a grant and some federal support to bring it publicly. And we've partnered with the Utah Warriors, the professional
the
rugby club. Yep. Because rugby culture is very family oriented. Yes. It's very protector. It's very healthy. And we need good, strong men to speak out about this for other men to pay attention. And it might be cliche, but I always tell Jason, I'm like, they either have to fear you or respect you, or both, to even give a shit about what you're doing or saying. And so we have to have great men out there leading this, because it's a space that you and I mean, we can talk till we're blue in the face, but our male peers are more likely to listen to their male peers than they are us when it comes to male issues.
Because I think, and you shared the statistics I want you to with me before we started recording, and I want you to share this with the listeners, but it's because there's this fear sometimes from a man of being wrongfully accused, right? Which happens. No one wants to be wrongfully accused of anything. So like, I'm not downplaying that. It would be a fear of mine too if I was a man. But can you share the statistic on like wrongfully accused for men? Yeah, I thought that was really powerful.
Yes, it's very interesting, because I hear that all the time. Like, well, look at this woman, Amber Heard, or blah, 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 whatever. Like, they're ruining it. Well, it's 2 to 5%. Between 2 and 5% of all sexually violent accusations are false. That's it, 2 to 5%. And what's interesting is 2 to 5%, But what's interesting to me is that 1 in 7 males will experience sexual violence in their lifetime in the U.S. It's 1 in 5 in Utah. So the likelihood, right? Isn't that crazy? And it's male to male sexual violence. There are female perpetrators, 100%. I don't want to like minimize anybody's perpetrator that was with a female, because it does happen. More often than not, 98% of the time, it's a male perpetrator to a male victim.
So a man is more likely to be sexually assaulted than to be wrongfully accused by...
He's more likely to be sexually assaulted by a man, like 500 times more likely than he is to be wrongfully accused by a female.
By a female. That is insane.
Yeah. And men don't talk about it. You know, one of the things that I actually do love and value is because I'm in the combat sports space, men disclose to me all the time. Big, strong, professional fighters, professional competitor, like the highest level, most alpha males that you can think of are finding the courage to disclose to me because of my foot in the door in combat sports. And that makes me so happy. And I'm so grateful, because a lot of these men, my first question is like, before obviously I'm going to say, thank you for telling me. And I believe you. It's like, what kind of support do you have? Have you shared this with your wife? Have you shared this with anybody else? How can we make sure you're not alone in this? Because you're not alone in this. 99% of the time, I'm the first person they've disclosed to. A pseudo stranger, right? Which I take very, very seriously, and it's an honor for me, but I also want that to change for the men.
Yeah.
I want men to be able to show up for each other and have these tough conversations and not feel like a pussy or not feel like a baby or all those like stereotypical things that I think men are concerned about being viewed as, because it does not make you any of those things. It does not make you weak to be a survivor. And it should be spoken about more openly, especially in the male communities. And I know our guys are doing it. I know our guys in our circles are amazingly supportive and open, but it's only because they've been educated.
Yes.
Right?
Well, but I only know because I've been educated, and I only got educated because I experienced it.
Yeah.
And so I think that I don't wrong people for not knowing.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing, is we're trying to create more awareness.
Yes.
We're trying to create better awareness, and maybe it does trigger a memory of yours that you've had, or maybe you now see it in like a friend, or statistically, like, unless you only have one friend out there forever, statistically, you at some point, or your family member or your friends will experience something along these lines, and being able to get them the support they need and to be able to be there to love them through it in the right way is huge to the healing. Because that was one thing that I had learned through therapy in all of this, was the experience that you had alone is horrific. But where that, it's almost like it's like a gunshot wound. But then if you have a support system that doesn't believe you or doubt you or all these things, it's like the infection spreading and spreading and spreading it. That half of the trauma comes from whether or not people believe you afterwards and how that experience goes. And it's just as important to have a healthy healing journey as whatever happened to you in the first place too. It can, if that makes sense. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I want to get into some of the questions that we got asked.
Yeah, there were a lot of good ones on there.
A lot of questions. So one of the first ones was, if you are a parent and you have a child that either you suspect has been a victim or is a victim, how can parents help their child through it? And specifically, if the child is refusing to be touched. So it's hard to go through self-defense training if you don't want to be touched. So what would your response be to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the times people aren't ready for hands-on self-defense training. But one of the most important things parents can do, not only in preventing, but in also helping heal, is to love that child unconditionally and help them build their self-esteem. I know that's really difficult because I have a 15 and an 18-year-old. They're both daughters. They're both incredible, but watching them struggle with their own self-worth, and as a parent, not being able to just be like, here, take
Here's
all
mine.
this.
Here's
Yeah.
mine.
I see you like this. And if you don't see yourself that way, let me just bring this and put this into your mind. But puberty is rough. It's rough. It's rough.
Teenage years are rough on everyone.
Yes, on everyone.
No one gets out of that period of time unscathed.
Yes.
So then to deal with trauma on top of that.
Yes. And also taking away that guilt and shame too. Like, it does not matter what happened to you. And this is one of the things Elizabeth Smart talks about too, is when she got home, not her number one, but a big concern of hers was like, I'm trash. I'm used garbage. I'm like a used piece of gum, which came from a lesson in church.
I remember being taught that too.
Yep, you're a used piece of gum and nobody will want you. But when she came home, like, her parents literally were like, we love you. And they gave her all the power. Like, what do you want to do for this journey? How do you want to move forward? For her, it was going right back to school and assuming normal life. And that worked for her. That doesn't work for everybody. But I think as a parent, educating yourself. So one, find yourself a good therapist, because you cannot support your child if you are not at full power either. Yeah. So you need
really good point.
Yes, you need to take care of yourself so that you can then show up for your kids in a healthy way. So understanding that you need your own support, a great therapist, a great friend group, learning everything you can online. Sapria is a great local resource. And I know it's a different website, but it used to be defendinnocence.org. They would have different video modules, like, for each different age group on how to talk about things like sexual abuse. So sapria.org is a great resource to check out. And they also have a really great healing retreat. It's for anybody 18 and over. It's completely free. You go, and it's for survivors of childhood sexual abuse, specifically women only. And they go to this week-long retreat in the beautiful mountains of, like, it's not southern Utah, but it's south of Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And they get to work with therapists, and they get to move their body. They do mindfulness and yoga and Muay Thai. They also do art and, so many wonderful healing modalities that I think there are options as adults if you've survived childhood sexual abuse. But as a parent, the biggest thing you can do is make sure that you're getting your own support, and that you are educating and learning about the different types of abuse and the type of trauma triggers. Like, half the time it just takes like, okay, let's breathe through this. And because it may not be that carpool was late. It actually may be that you all of a sudden don't have control over something, and that is triggering something else where you didn't have control.
Got it.
So understanding how it shows up, and then also making sure that your kiddos know, like, whatever it is, you're there and you'll help them. You'll figure out a way. Like, you are their biggest supporter. They are not alone. They're not weird. They're not dirty. They're not damaged. Like, they are incredible humans, and you'll find a way no matter what.
Do you recommend, so I have heard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just in general, if you can't find a self-defense class close by, or specific, if you don't live in Utah and this one's not available, I've heard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a great class for women to take, because it is learning work on the ground, and most males take women to the ground, or other men to the ground. Like, a lot of it happens on the floor. And so being able to, like, learn how to move out of that. Let's say you are someone that's now going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class for the first time, because you're like, I kind of want to take my power back. Do you recommend them pulling an instructor aside ahead of time or something to share that? Like, because I'm just trying to think, if you are someone like, I'm doing this, I went through trauma, but I want to take my power back, but maybe I don't want to be paired with, like, a really big man, or maybe it's a woman, or, like, if there's a trigger, do you recommend they share that before the class? Or, like, what's the best way for people to go about starting this journey physically, but also making sure that, like, everyone's aware, but then they might be embarrassed? That's been a big question of mine. Is like, I want to do this. The idea of, like, going to a class intimidates me. I feel nervous about being touched by, like, a specific person who looks like my perpetrator. What should people do there?
There's a lot of things, and actually, I'm really glad you brought it up, because just training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not the answer.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think when you're choosing a gym and a gym environment, there are a few things you should look for that are green flags. I mean, there are a million red flags, but let's talk about green flags. One, is there a female in a position of power? Okay. Right. And it's not just teaching the kids class or working the front desk or married to the owner. Is there a female in a position of power, like either coaching or running the office, or is she an owner? Like, there are many, many things. And it's just because it's not that male dominated only gyms are bad. It is that they have a woman at the table making decisions.
They're a stakeholder.
Yes, they're a stakeholder, and they have a female in the room, because perspectives of women are always going to be different than the perspectives of men. Thank goodness, because we need both. But so is there a female in position of power? And I highly recommend trying a women's only class first for this sheer, like, not everybody is comfortable with physical touch, let alone physical touch where somebody's in between your legs or on top of your chest, or you can smell what they had for dinner. Like, there's a lot of that that grosses you out.
Alone. I mean, just for the record, I only take women's only classes. I have the only male that I have rolled with has either been my husband or one of
Tanner.
the gym owners. And Mike, but he came into the female class to be my, like, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so I like one partner the whole class, and he was my specific partner. But he also has a bunch of girls, but like, I felt safe with him. So it was a pre decided, we'd had a conversation before the class. So I just to make women feel comfortable there, I don't go to a co-ed class. I only take women's classes. And you are the only instructor that I've had teach me. So that makes a lot of sense, what you're saying.
Yes. And I would say too, like, if you're in a jiu-jitsu gym and you're with a really good, like, coach, they'll know what your triggers are. Like, I know who of my students have had traumas in the past, and maybe 50% disclosed to me. So a good coach, whether you're female or male, is going to be able to pick up on the changes in your breathing pattern, your eye contact. Like, I've had students disassociate mid-roll. I've had, like, a good instructor will be able to pick up on that without you having to feel pressure to disclose. So I wouldn't say disclosure is necessary. It's helpful if your coach is well-versed and educated in trauma. And a lot of gyms are getting to the point where they're requiring either safe sport training or trauma-informed training, which is a really big green flag. And all of Crown staff has been trauma-informed trained, which is lovely.
So those are really good questions to maybe, if you're calling around and finding they have a women's only, is a female instructor, who are your owners?
Yes.
Are they certified in these? These are just good questions, because at the end of the day, disclosure is not needed. It's your comfortability in the environment.
Yeah. And the safety, because there are, I started and grew up in jiu-jitsu with no females instructors or training partners, but I had a handful of very safe coaches.
Yeah.
And I will even say, like, my current two professors, Johnny and James, I don't think they've been trauma-informed trained. I don't know, but they have handled my journey with such care and respect. And we even called, unified the rehab for female jiu-jitsu players for a long time, because women who had awful experiences at other gyms were just flocking to Unified because it was a safe gym. And the same thing is happening at Crown. Like, word gets out, women talk, we're good at that. So if it's a safe gym and they have a great reputation, I mean, read all the reviews, like, really take it seriously, and don't sign anything. You go and you get to try it out for free for at least a week before any gym should be pressuring you to sign anything. And if you are signing something, try a month-to-month contract at first, because it may not be for you. And another green flag I'll say is, like, do they have women's only facilities?
Yeah.
Is it a co-ed locker room? Do they have showers? Is there a specific women's space where you can change and not worry about random guys walking in on you?
Yeah. That's really helpful. Okay. Another question. that I got asked, and I know you got asked this too. When can you report? So if you do experience sexual assault, rape, do you have to report it right away? That's like one of my questions is how long do you have to report the crime?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And luckily for us, Utah has evolved in that area. I was telling you earlier, when I decided finally to report, it was years after the abuse had ended and my statute of limitations had ended. So I couldn't file a report or I couldn't press charges.
Yeah.
Of course, I filed a report. Of course, we tried to do all the right things, but that was years after when I felt safe enough to do so. But now you can report rape. There's no statute of limitations. So you can, yep, in Utah. And if it is sexual abuse like groping, there are some other specifics in that law. It's 8 years, but as long as it's reported within 4. And another thing,
hold on. So let's just, what's the difference between reporting? So if you can report in 4 years, but then
not press charges.
Okay, thank you. I'm like, so you have 4 years to report it, and then you have an additional 4 years to press charges if you choose to from that point. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
I'm like, just for, if there are listeners that like me, I don't know exactly what they mean. So you reporting and press charges are 2 separate steps.
Yes. And the thing to note is one of our female coaches is former law enforcement. And so I didn't know specifically, and I could look up the laws and I did. But it's hard to not define. It's hard to interpret legal jargon sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that's just a very crude overview of the laws. But one of the things she did want me to make sure to share was that it's not an easy process. So make sure that you understand your rights to a victim advocate. So anybody that goes in to report or to press charges has a legal right to a free victim advocate. And the only job of that person is to support you and make sure that the process is as painless as possible. You will be questioned and your perpetrator will get the opportunity to be questioned as well. And it's not always a smooth process. We know this. We always say it's a justice system, not a legal system. Or sorry, it's a legal system, not a justice system. So it's a lot of the law enforcement, they mean well, but not all law enforcement officers have to go through trauma-informed training. Mm-hmm. So one of those things has changed. When Elizabeth was rescued, she was immediately handcuffed and put into the back of a squad car, a 14-year-old survivor. Like, it's insane. Now that's changed. Now that doesn't happen. But 20 years ago, that's what she remembers, is how afraid she was that she was going to go to prison because she was guilty for her abuse. And they asked her all these questions with her perpetrator standing a foot away from her. Like, of course she's not going to answer them, and now we know better.
Yeah, but also an adult brain versus a 14-year-old brain. And you think of little children. And I will say one thing when it comes to filing or pressing charges, reporting and then pressing charges is teaching your children at an early age the correct terms of their body is huge, because words matter in those police reports.
Yes.
Sadly, but they do. So if you have a nickname for, if like you're teaching your daughter that it needs to be vagina, they touch me on my vagina, not like a nickname that you have for that area. It needs to be specific. Like there's no interpretation of what they meant in that. And then you also told me when we were in training, I remember you said, if you are attacked, you have to use the word strangle and not choke. Because choke, technically, you could be choking on your gum. You could be like...
Choking is internal, strangulation is external. And also one of the biggest things, too, is understanding how to articulate to law enforcement that you were in fear for your life.
Yeah.
Being able to... which is, I've had adrenaline dumps and floods and all of that, and it's very, very hard to have the correct...
to remember the correct words and terms.
Yes, which is another reason why you should have a victim advocate there. Mm-hmm. But understanding that you need to articulate to law enforcement why you took
Whatever action you took.
Whatever action you took, yeah. And it's because of the way he came at me, or because of what he said to me, or because of the way he moved his body, or like, especially if it's a pattern of behavior and he has hit you in the past, or he has done something awful in the past, you know what indicators are there, and your body knows what indicators are there before your brain even registers it. And so being able to articulate why you felt in fear for your life is paramount. And when you report.
So it's really good. It is really good then to have that victim advocate there, or to just say, I request a victim advocate and a lawyer before. You have the right to do that before you answer any questions.
Yes. And also, even when you're taken for a rape kit, you should have an advocate there the whole time.
Okay. For the rape kit, I don't know the details on this. Do they have a certain amount of time?
I believe it's up to 5 days.
5, okay.
I know a lot of people are like, if you don't do it within 24 hours, but I believe it's up to 5 days. I will clarify that. And by the time this goes out, I'll have an article or some sort of information for you. Because actually one of my best friends is one of the women that goes into the hospital and meets with the survivor and is there through the whole process of collection and all that awful process.
Okay. What questions did you get? Have I covered? Most of them fall under what we've covered in some way. I will say, like, I made that post and did not expect the response that I got. And what was actually like really heartbreaking was how many responses I got either on the post or in private DMs of women saying almost, I would say 90% of them were women saying, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. So many of them were at work. So many of them were, and most of them, from what they were telling me, was by people they knew and trusted. And it just broke my heart all over again. And so I know that you deal with it all the time, but it was just really, it was shocking. It has rocked me for sure. I can't stomach how common it is, which is really, really sad. And if there's someone listening to this and they have more questions for you, or like, where's a good place where can they find you, or where's a good place where they can reach out, regardless of where they are, if the state of Utah or whatnot, where does Smart Defense have like a hotline, or can they reach out to you? Where can people go with questions? Because I'm sure there are going to be a lot.
Yes, I'll give you my email for the show notes, just mio@elizabethsmartfoundation.org, or on Instagram, they can DM me, Utah Jits Mama, or they can DM the foundation as well, Elizabeth Smart Foundation. And we have locations in Idaho, Colorado, Utah, and and Nevada.
Okay.
And then we have an online course as well, because we launched during COVID. So we're like, well, we better have an answer to no in-person training. So we do have a Smart Defense Plus, which is an online training, which is great. It's better than nothing, but we highly, highly, highly recommend you start in person and then continue your training with either jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, or even just the Smart Defense Plus training online. You can just refresh it, because if you don't practice, it won't be there when you need it to be there. It's got to be muscle memory ingrained in your cells. Yeah. And I think too, one of the good things I saw, or interesting, and I get this question all the time, well, I would just shoot them. Right. Yeah. Or like, I would just
shoot them,
stab them and run away. Or, I get that all the time. And I see that a lot on social media, where the answer
didn't have a gun on me in Mexico, guys. Sorry.
Yes. And that's usually a male saying,
just shoot them.
Just shoot them. Right. And yes, I do believe perpetrators deserve to be shot in many cases. And I would love to shoot one if they tried to assault me. However, you don't always have a gun, and you don't always have a knife, and you don't always have anything with you, right? There's no one answer. There's no one magic bullet to self-defense. And I think generally the public does not understand that. There's so much more that goes into protecting yourself and just creating a safer community than just weapons training. And even when you were saying so many of the women that reached out to you were assaulted in the workplace or by coworkers.
Don't have a gun at work, guys.
You don't have a gun at work. And it's 86% of sexual violence happens at the hands of somebody you already know. So like my perpetrator was a family member. Am I going to shoot? You know, it's
not realistic. Although I'm an advocate for it if you can. And obviously there's the whole justice system part of that too, right? Yes. And so that's neither here nor there. But to your point, does the 8-year-old daughter sleeping in her bed that gets assaulted need to sleep with a gun under her pillow? Like it really is not realistic. And there are times where you're like, oh, I'm going for a run. I want to have a weapon on me. Great. But in my circumstance with a bar full of 100 coworkers on a work trip in Mexico, didn't have a weapon handy, guys. Sorry. Wasn't going to stab him real fast, you know? So you're right. Like it's not that's like, it's just not the only answer because it's not realistic.
Yeah. It's just such a more nuanced issue. And people just think there's just a blanket answer to it. And there's not. And I know a lot of people that own guns that do not practice with guns.
No.
And that is as dangerous as people who take a 1-week self-defense seminar and think they're good. Mm-hmm. No. You need to practice. You need to put time and effort and dedication into what you're doing. And with you, it's like you use your voice, and learning to use your voice to me was more powerful for you than learning to move your body in a certain way.
Yeah.
And now when you say, if it happened again, I would for sure make a stink or this. Mm-hmm. That's not, you're going to like knee him in the testicle. It's you being like, hey, motherfucker, like, don't, and drawing attention to what's happening. And that is something we can practice every day. You don't have to have a partner to do that like you do for jujitsu.
Yeah.
You can just simply practice standing up for yourself, talking for others, standing up for other people, using your voice to, create awareness, which you're doing beautifully right now. There's so many ways to make self-defense a daily implementation into your life.
One of the things that you told me in the first training was even how you stand in public, just your presence. The thing is like, no matter what we talk about, I just want to say, you can go through all the self-defense. You could be a black belt and you can still get raped tomorrow and it won't be your fault. So even if you do everything right and something still happens, like you're not at fault. Like it's not odd. At the end of the day, the perpetrators need to stop doing it. But if it gives you self-worth and you feel more confident, and I think about it all the time now when I'm in public. Like, how do I stand? How do I present myself? I hope I give off an aura of like, you better not mess with me. And that confidence comes from being able to back it up, like physically. But there is just, even from like doing jiu-jitsu classes before we did the self-defense and then we did it afterwards, you and Amy were both like, you're a lot more confident in your body. Your body's a lot stronger. Nothing had changed. It was just that there was a level of confidence of like, there's a presence of don't mess with me and don't mess with everyone around me either. Like, and I think that the more whatever you can do, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's a kickboxing class, whatever it is that you can do to give yourself that confidence of like, don't mess with me, that alone. And not just don't mess with me, don't mess with anyone around me or anyone I love, because I'm not going to stand for it. I think that makes a big difference too.
Well, as females too, being okay, being the bitch. That is like huge. Like I have ex-coworkers that would never, ever say anything to my face, but they'd talk to coworkers. And I'm like,
oh, well,
it's because
that's shocking.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's shocking that people behave that way.
Yeah. So weird. And it's crazy because I'm okay to be the bitch. I'll tell you straight up to your face what I think you're doing wrong. I'll do it in a professional manner if we're in a professional setting, but I am going to speak my mind. And to me, I feel like that is as important as the body language. Like being able to use your voice in a way is as important as like, are my shoulders back? Is my head up? Am I making eye contact with you? And that's another self-defense myth to debunk is people think like if you make eye contact, then you're inviting interaction. but it's
Don't think so.
Yeah, it's not that. It's you are making them aware that you are aware. And the top 2 reasons perpetrators who were incarcerated said that they chose their victims based off of, one was they looked like easy targets. So that plays right into body language. And 2 is accessibility. So if you can just keep those 2 things at the forefront of your mind as you go through your daily life, it makes a difference.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks
so much for coming on. So just to reiterate, where can they find you?
Utah Jits Mama on Instagram, or I will give you my email is just mio@elizabethsmartfoundation.org. And yep, I'm happy to bring a training to them wherever they are.
Amazing. No, I appreciate you sharing with everyone here, and I obviously so appreciate what you've done for me. So thank you. And thank you for coming on and chatting.
I was excited. There are a lot of good questions. So let us know if you have more.
Yes. Please let us know if you have more. You guys know where to find us. Thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Follow me behind the scenes at the Beth Clifford at Instagram and on TikTok, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.